Third Tuesday Conversation is an informal monthly network gathering that's supposed to be just that. We're just sitting down over coffee and having a chat about current ministry topics. So we hope that you've grabbed a cup of coffee and that you'll settle in wherever you are. In order to make this an interactive conversation over coffee, I'd like to encourage you to type your question into the box on the right-hand side of your screen, and I'll be sure to pass your question along to Celia. I'd like to welcome Celia to our network gathering. Thanks for being here with us today, Celia. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you guys for having me.
Good. Well, we're excited to have you.
I know when we spoke of this, there's been so many other wonderful conversations, and I wish we were all knee to knee with coffee or a Diet Coke or a tall glass of iced water or sweet tea from the South. But I'm glad to join you guys. Thanks for having me.
Pretend is just as well, I guess, for now. Before we get talking about what's the latest stuff with you, Celia, wondering if maybe you could tell us a bit about yourself, about your family, and whatever background information you want to share with people to get to know you a bit better.
Well, great. I grew up in Louisiana, came to Tennessee by way of Texas, have an elementary ed degree, K through 8, taught school for about 5 years. Science, love the teachers, love the folks that give us the light bulb moments, and have a Christian ed degree also. Worked with junior highs and children's ministry and youth ministry. Swore I'd never marry a pastor, grew up a preacher's kid, and married a youth director. And so I just have always loved youth. I love who they are, the honesty, and their heart, the way they love and the way they care for each other and for others. And jumped off of teaching about 20 years ago and heard a call and started traveling and singing. Eventually moved to Nashville, started writing my own songs, releasing my music independently, and started writing books a couple of years ago, and write with a couple of country songwriters in Nashville. I'm working on a couple of new books right now. One's a memoir, one's a worship book for folks who are out there leading worship, and a spy novel about a young girl that's seeking a career in spy land. So
that's awesome.
Quite a diverse handful of things. I lead a lot of youth events across the country and women's retreats and church-wide things, national events. Grew up United Methodist, but have just had the pleasure of fun and family with the ELCA and the network, and I just always have felt at home in the churches across the country and the extravaganza and the gathering, and just been such a joy and pleasure. I think music is universal. Christ's message certainly is. And so there's times I find myself at a Catholic work camp or a Southern Baptist Girls Convention or a Episcopal, or it really varies week after week as to different settings. You might hear my dog in the background. She's whining and wants to be a part of the webinar, Lily, and we got 2 new Christmas dogs. We rescued 2 dogs from the pound, Scout and Scarlet. And then my boys, Max and Zach, they're the dangerous duo. Max is 10 and in 5th grade and reading everything he can get his hands on. And he's my math whiz. And Zach is 9. He's in 3rd grade, and gosh, he would have every animal in our kitchen in a tank if he could. And married to Ron Whitler, my best friend and partner in crime. He's the fireman. He prevents a lot of things that could go wrong on the road from going wrong. Just many wonderful ministry gifts and administrative gifts and music expertise. And so he doesn't manage me. I don't manage him. We're just kind of partners in life, and just so fortunate to be journeying with him. And then we have family, friends, really friends who are family and family who are friends, and feel really fortunate in those areas.
Very cool. I know you said a little bit about this, but do a lot of retreats and other things with your music. And when you and I have been talking, you've been telling me some interesting things about ministry with girls. And I'm wondering if you could tell us about that and what maybe some of your hopes and dreams are for that ministry.
Yeah. I was asked to do a national event, the United Methodist Church, this upcoming summer in Purdue, Indiana, and I was asked if I would just lead some workshops. And I started thinking about what is it that I might want to say. And I've always talked about following your passion or songwriting, finding your creative voice. And I've been leading a lot of women's retreats in the last couple of years since I wrote a book for women, a gift book called One Wish for You a few years back. And as I have always done, just hearing people's story is really sacred to me. I love that. And there have been a couple of times we pulled girls in to do like a mother-daughter thing, and a couple of times we pulled in just young gals and had just a cross-generational representation going on. And I've always had a heart for girls and what they're going through. I remember just how important it was to have a few people in your life that were lifelines. I mean, I think back to specific girls that just built me up and loved me through a lot of things. Michelle Fisher invited me to church when my dad quit the ministry and we moved into a brand new town, and I didn't know very many folks, and just really was more than a mentor. Being an older gal, she really shared what it meant to take someone under your wing and love them through a hard time. Marianne Baker, a friend of mine, would call and say, hey, let's go do something. She always thought of me and remembered me. There's friends of mine here. I sit with a friend, Lisa, at coffee, and just sitting knee to knee with another gal and sharing your heart. Not that I haven't had guys along the way who've been amazing friends, but there's something unique to an experience that girls go through. There's a lot of competitiveness and comparison, and there's a huge voice in the media, and I just think maybe it's time for us to turn toward some practices of loving each other. So I got this idea of a workshop, Girls for Girls. And I think it feels like a book, but more than a book or a retreat or a workshop, it feels like something we could put our whole weight on and hang our hat on and say, these are a few practices and principles we want to live by that maybe some other folks aren't living by, but we're going to be different, so we can be different.
Cool. Would you be willing to give us a sneak peek about what some of those things look like? Maybe what you're thinking about ritual or practice?
Yeah, I mean, like this morning, I was thinking about that everybody could be a cheerleader. You know, those people in our lives who have been just cheering us on. What are ways that we've been cheered on and ways that we cheer others on? And I'm not talking from a boastful, prideful way or an exclusiveness. A lot of times cheerleaders get a bad rep. And I love that I was at an event in Disney this past December, and the National Cheerleading Convention was going on. And everywhere I went, there were cheerleaders, and they were arm in arm, and they were learning new things together, and they were standing on top of shoulders. And I would just stop. Their convention was beside our convention, and there were all these youth directors from the event that I was leading worship for. And when I had time off, I would sneak my head in, and I would see these girls who didn't know cheers, didn't know the tumbles, didn't know the acrobatic stance that they were going to make, cheer each other on from the sidelines. Hey, you can do it. Hey, grab her hand. Hey, we got you over here. We're watching out. And I took pictures with them. I talked about how I was the cheerleader in the backyard, but I never tried out. I mean, there was a part of me that it was hard to think about taking that risk in front of the whole school. And it was wonderful to see those girls cheer each other on and find the joy in that. And maybe there's something that we can learn from them in our youth groups, in our communities, and even in our homes. That, you know, when we go to school, we have an opportunity to be a hand for somebody else. And when I think of practices, I think of things that I do on a regular basis, be it prayer. I've been reading Phyllis Tickle's book, The Divine Hours, and there are different times throughout the day where I just stop, and wherever I am, she says, can be an altar, can be a place where prayer can just be a part of your life. What are the things that we do every day that are practices of love? I tell Max and Zach when they get out of the car, help someone today. Be on the lookout. Be a good listener. What are some different traits of a good listener that we can implement? What about forgiveness? How could we bite our tongue and hold our tongue and use some self-control? So I'm working on the practical part of that and what that might look like for girls, but not just for girls, for me too.
Sure. I know that, and we talked a little bit about this, but girls, especially in middle school and high school, they turn into something crazy sometimes. They're cruel to each other, and you know, like you mentioned just earlier, so competitive and so about setting themselves above someone else. And so I am really curious about these practices and how we can sort of work to break this evil girl cycle. I mean, I think that you talked about that your boys even come home and say, she was so mean, or
Absolutely.
things like that.
Some of the things that have really, helped me, and when I taught school, we used to do this. We used to have the older kids go down and teach a lesson to the younger kids, and I'd always say, hey, it's more than just going down and being the rock star and teach. There's going to be opportunities then in the hall where that lesson continues. And what are some experiences that we can put girls in, and some opportunities where some girls can share their expertise, share their time with younger girls, inexperienced girls, where we can put in their hands some responsibilities and some opportunities where they can lead. But really, I kind of liken when I lead worship, I'm truly a follower. I'm not there to say, hey, I've got the microphone and I'm the only one here that knows the direction we're going. I think it's much more about listening to God in those moments and being willing and surrender your will somewhat to the moment and to what God could do. And I think that there's something there for us to explore with girls, because really when I started writing, and I've been writing on this for a couple months, and even talking to girls across the country as I travel, what's the thing you want? What's the one thing you really want and that you long for? And I continually hear to be known, to be a real true friend. A true friend. Well, what does that look like?
Yeah.
What does that intimacy look like? And what are some practices that I can do to be that for others? And I think it starts with trust. There's just a lack of trust between girls. They feel like the minute they walk away, someone's going to say something bad about them. And
sure.
To instill in them the practice or the means by which we build trust and we build what true love looks like. And certainly Corinthians 13 gave us a good model for that. And there's so many other little hints. My son plays video games, and he says, I'm going to go online and get the cheats and get the hints.
This one comes from Tara. She says, how do you develop interest in church youth activities with your groups? Any specific differences with welcoming groups of boys than girls?
Well, I think boys are more, they're a challenge. And to think that that both of them will respond in the same ways, I think would be a myth on our part. as those of us. What was the beginning of the question?
How do you develop interest in church youth activities with kids?
Well, you know, what I've seen is great youth directors across the country involve their kids in the planning. And that, to me, keeps us on the pulse of what they're interested in. And one thing that I was going to share earlier that I think is a big part of all of this, and just retraining, rechanging, reshaping our hearts and minds is serving, is reaching out. You know, to be great is to be a servant. And so I think in developing opportunities and programming for boys and girls, there needs to be some times that we turn outward and we say, what are the specific wonderful gifts and talents that we have, or passions and desires that we have, that we're going to share those and create those opportunities using the youth as our partners.
Cool. Hannah says she loves the cheerleading image of a way to give that image to girls, so she says thanks for that. And her question is, what do you find is what's the hardest thing about working with girls? What do you struggle with the most in ministry with girls?
You know, I think what is hard is establishing that safe place. And once you kind of do that and everybody buys in, it is what Jesus talked about, the kingdom comes down. I did an event in Houston, and it really started with the boy. It was kind of the catalyst for this all. He had moved into a youth group, and the youth director asked if I'd just sit and talk to him. He was having a hard time. And as he spoke, he began to cry. And a couple of young guys, they were all freshmen in high school, came over and just stood, and he just continued to share his story. And what I told him was, did you see what just happened? These guys aren't saying anything, but God's kingdom just came down because they are supporting you and encouraging you by saying, hey, I'm just right here. Well, because of that experience in the afternoon, that evening, we pitched the programming, and the girls, we all got on our bunk beds and in our pajamas, and everybody just shared their heart and went around, you know, the cabin, and the guys sat out by the campfire, and they poked the fire, and they would just share. Well, the girls were there for 3 hours because we established a place of trust. And what we said is, hey, nobody's leaving this, and it was kind of like Vegas. What happens here stays here and shared here. And one by one, and counselors included, just would share their heart. And what was so amazing about it is someone would raise their hand, and then they would share. And they said, well, I'm the big sister, and I've never thought about that. But, you know, I never take in consideration that she's really looking to me, and maybe I'm being short with her and hurting her feelings by this. Or another girl raised her hand to a counselor and said, well, your son's going off to college, but he's going to come home and wash clothes. And what was so amazing is she just reached out to that counselor and said, he loves you, he cares for you, loves you all the time. And these girls just not only shared their heart, but they ministered to each other. And at the very end of the evening, one of the girls said, you know what's weird is tomorrow all of our folks come to pick us up, and we get in our cars and we drive away. And some of us, we know more about each other than our parents know. And I know more about you than they know, and you know more about me. And part of that is really amazing and awesome, and part of that is really sad and hard. So I think creating those opportunities and not worrying, okay, we got it, lights got to be out, you know. We just kind of said, we're going to be here until, and we're going to be lifting each other up and encouraging each other. And one girl talked about doing drugs and partying, and these other girls had lost a friend who had OD'd, and boy, they just shared in a convicted way and leaned into her and said, look, you don't want to be standing over a grave saying, man, I wish she was here with us today. And they had a right to be heard that none of us, and a right to share that I didn't that day and that night. And it was awesome to just kind of step back and see, just let it happen.
Yeah, girls are conversationalists, that's for sure. I have another question coming in. Wondering if you can talk a little bit practically how you mentioned about prayer, and how do you teach the practice of prayer? I think it's something that we in congregations struggle with. You can't expect them to do something that they've never practiced, but just how do you see that lived out?
Absolutely, and there's some great books out there on prayer and just some, experiences that we can have. I think prayer needs to be really, first and foremost, we need to get back to the communication of it, that it is really not one-sided or one way, that there is a dance, there's a dialogue that occurs, and we don't live in a society where we listen very well. And, I'm at fault just, like today, we drop the call all the time, and we talk over each other, and we, one friend of mine calls it when you're talking when someone else is talking, bird walking. We don't really implement the sacredness of listening, and there's something that happens when you not only share your heart, but you make space to hear a response. And I think there are retreats that have really have a burnt imprint in my mind, where I was sent off by myself to just sit under a tree at Camp Caney and just listen. So that's one thing that I think that we need to look for and provide more opportunities in workshops with youth and in our day-to-day with. And we ourselves, as folks working with youth, need to have that in our own lives. And then giving youth just the message that Phyllis Tickle shared one time, that God loves the prayers you do pray, and is not worried about the prayers you don't pray. So many times we come at it from a guilt standpoint. Well, I didn't make time this morning, or I forgot to get on the side of my bed and pray tonight. Just to celebrate those moments when you do remember and you say, oh gosh, Lord, be with me today. In our family at night, we always say the Lord's Prayer. We say, who comes to mind? Of course, Japan is on my mind constantly, and those who are suffering. But who's someone on my street, in my class? And what small words can I lift up for them? And then what is God nudging me in that prayer to do, that I could be a responder to that prayer here on earth? Those are a couple ideas that have impacted me.
Cool. Well, hey, I think since we missed you for a quick second there, let's take one more question and then we'll wrap it up. We'll maybe extend 3 or 5 more minutes. I have a question coming in from Anne, and it's kind of segmented here, so I'm going to make sure I can follow it. She's wondering, in her youth group, looks like they're in her senior high, they're pretty cliquey, and she can't seem to break it up. And so she's wondering, they won't let the middle school girls in, and she's wondering what you think about handling this.
I think that is the age-old problem, isn't it? And I used to teach the junior high Sunday school, and they'd always talk about how the senior highs are so mean to us, and they don't talk to us, and they don't let us, do stuff. And I said, what's going to happen in 2 or 3 years? And they'd say, what? And I'd say, you're going to do senior high. Mm-hmm. They'd say, we're going to do the same thing. It's like, okay, how can we break that? And it's really, it's got to start with us knowing each other. It really does. Mm-hmm. I mean, it has to begin with us valuing each other, knowing each other, knowing each other's story. There needs to be, of course, there's times when junior highs really get junior highs, and they need to be together and doing stuff. But there is opportunities for us, not only just in the youth group, but in the church as a whole. There's all kind of ways, be it games, be it simulation. Ron and I've done different things with maybe a hunger weekend where you divide up, you know, and talk about the group and the way the world is divided up as far as goods and services and food, and really have something that they experience together. I think could be one thing. Another, you know, when we did missions, we were all kind of mixed up at times, and so there's got to be opportunities where we are together and we're not always in a competitive, be it a game. You know, I'm not a big fan of games that eliminate people or games that are competitive games. I mean, I was a big dodgeball player, but we've got to find ways, and I think it begins with getting those youth to the table, really having retreats, having you know, Friday night girls' night, having sleepovers, getting some adults involved, and not just you know, we have a stereotypical sometimes idea of what a counselor looks like, and there's all these wonderful people and women, you know, maybe there's someone single, or there's someone retired, or there's someone that's a teacher that she just has a gentle spirit, or she's always a great listener. We could pull in some of those people to be in ministry with us, and my heart goes out to that gal, because, you know, we've got to teach and live the practice of opening the circle up, and maybe you can't make them open theirs up, but what are some things we can do to open ours up? You know?
Absolutely. Thanks for fielding questions and rolling with what we got here today. I promised I'd give you a second to plug what you're working on. You did mention your little spy novel and a couple other projects you're working on, but maybe you want to talk a little bit about CeliaMusic.net or ways that people can get in touch with you?
Absolutely. We do an email newsletter every month or so, and people can sign up on the website, CeliaMusic.net. We have a blog that has all of those past devotions and lets folks know where we are and where we've been. And you know, I'm going to be writing and working on this Girls for Girls project, and hopefully we'll have something to offer and share with others. I'm writing that spy novel, and we might self-it and just release it ourselves. That feels kind of good. And always writing music and songs. I'm writing some songs for One Life Map that is a story-based curriculum that helps folks tell their story. And I love that kind of thing. It's called Listen to Your Life, and onelifemaps.com is a great tool and resource to help. You know, maybe that's the place to start, is just with our story. And that's always worked for me. That's what songwriting is, and writing has been for me, and I'm always looking for vehicles to do that and to connect people to God and people to each other. And so we're playing in the yard with the dogs and boys when we get a chance. And thank you so much for spending a few minutes with me today.
Hey, thanks for coming by. We're glad to have coffee with you this morning, or this afternoon, I should say. And I'm going to just wrap up here. Our next Third Tuesday conversation is with Mark Matlock on April 19th, 1 p.m. Central. Thanks so much, Celia, for sharing your heart and your ministry with us. And thanks to all of you who've joined in today. Thanks for hanging with us during our little hiccup. And we'll meet you back here next month. Thanks, and have a good day.